today we are doing lesson 4.3, which is graphing using intercepts. An intercept is simply a place where the line crosses the y-axis or the x-axis. So we're going to look at where our line crosses both of those axes. So this first one, the x-intercept, they show with the point A right here. It says A, 0 at that point, because in our form xy, y is at 0, meaning our y-axis is not at 1, 2, or 3, it's down here at 0. The x-axis really represents when y is at 0. So, and this is on the x-axis at, let's say, 1, 2, 3. So that would be represented by 3, 0. The y-intercept is where we cross the y-axis. For example, on this graph, our y-axis is represented by the letter B, or they have written here 0, B. So when x is at 0, not 1 or 2 or 3, when x is 0, it's really on the y-axis. So the x is nothing and y is up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be 0, 4. So let's take a look at a couple graphs we have here. We can see on this graph we have 1 and 2 to the right here, and then this would be -1, -2, and so on. So our x-intercept, where does the line cross the x-axis? Well, we can see it crosses right there at that point, which would be, in terms of x, y, x is at 2, and y is at 0. So x and y. Then our y-intercept, where we're crossing the y-axis down here at -1. So when we look for our point, x is left to right 0, and then y is down 1 or -1. So notice our y-intercept, we have a number for y. Our x-intercept, we have a number for x, because that's where we're crossing the x-axis and the y-axis. The other number is 0 because it's on the line. So let's look at our next one. We can see our graph crosses the y-axis here and the x-axis here. So our x-intercept, where it crosses the x-axis, here's our x-axis, we're at -1, -2, -3, -4. So we went -4 and then up or down 0. So x is -4 and y is 0. Notice when we're looking for the x-intercept, y is 0. When we're looking for the y-intercept, x is 0, because we're not going left and right for our y-intercept here. So for our y-intercept, we're at 0 and then up 1, 2. 0, 2 for x and y. So again, for our y-intercept, x is 0. For x-intercept, y is 0, because it's on the line. Here, it just wants us to graph the line that has the given intercept. I have these little football players here as an example for what intercept means, because in terms of football, when you're intercepting the ball, you're changing directions, or you're crossing paths with another player. This is when we're crossing the x-axis. You're kind of taking over at that spot. So our x-intercept is -3. These go by 2, so -3 would be in the middle. And our y-intercept is -6. -2, -4, -6 is right there. So we're just going to connect those. Do a better job than I did there of drawing your line through your points. Next, same thing with our x and y-intercept. X is at -1. These go by 2, so -1 would be in the middle here. And our y-intercept is 3. 4 would be in between 6 and 2, so 3 is right there. Those ones are really close together. Draw your line all the way through from one side to the other. Now we're going to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept from a graph without actually graphing it. So we have as we notice back here, when we're looking for the x-intercept, when we're crossing the x-axis, the number in the y place is 0, because we're really on the x-axis. We're not at 2, 1, we're really at 0 on our y line right here. So we're at 0 and then 2 to the right. So x is 2, 0. So here, when we're looking for our x-intercept, y is really going to be 0. So we're going to plug a 0 in for y and figure out where do we cross the x-axis. And then we're going to do the same thing to find the x-axis. So I'm going to draw a little squiggle. I'm going to really solve this equation 2 times. We have negative 3x plus 9 times 0 equal to negative 18. So I'm finding we're plugging in when y is 0, so we're finding our x-intercept first. Anything times 0 is just 0, so I have negative 3x equal to negative 18. And now I'm just solving this. The opposite of multiplying by negative 3 is dividing by negative 3. So we have x equal to a positive 6. So that was our x-intercept because y was 0. Now I can find our y-intercept. This is going to be when x is 0. So I'm going to write out the same equation, except anytime I have an x, I'm going to instead plug in a 0. So we have negative 3 times 0 plus 9y equals negative 18. So if we solve this, anything times 0 is 0, so those really eliminate. And all we have is 9y equal to negative 18. So if we divide by 9, 18 divided by negative 9 is negative 2. Again, the reason why when we're finding our y-intercept, we're plugging in x is 0 is because that's where we're going to be on the x-axis, on the y-axis. When we're finding our x-intercept, y is 0. When we're finding our y-intercept, x is going to be 0. So this one will be a little bit easier. I'm going to solve this twice. First, I'm going to find my x-intercept. So that means we're going to have x for something, and then y is going to be a 0. So we really have x minus 0 equals negative 10. And x minus nothing is still just x. So this one we don't have to solve anything. X is just negative 10. On the other side, when we find our y-intercept, we really have x is 0 and y is what we're looking for. So we're plugging in when x is 0 into our equation. So we have 0 minus y equals negative 10. Now 0 doesn't really do anything, so we just have negative y equal to negative 10. But we know really this is a negative 1y. So we can divide by negative 1 and give us y equals 10. Alright, same thing. We're going to solve this 2 times. First I'm going to find my x-intercept. Again, when we're finding our x-intercept, y is going to be 0. When we're finding our y-intercept, x is 0. That's where we're crossing the y-axis, and when we're crossing the x and the y-axis. So first we have 0.5 times x plus 3 times y, but y is really a 0 equal to 9. I'm going to write this one out as well. When we're finding our y-intercept, x is 0, so we have 0.5 times 0 plus 3y equals 9. Now I know some of you can write this shorter because you know anything times 0, those are really going to cancel out. So we really just have 0.5x equal to 9. And over here we really just have 3y equal to 9. Because anything times 0 eliminated. So when we solve these, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm really dividing by 0.5. So we get x equal to, 9 divided by a half, how many halves go into 9? It would be 18. And then on this side, dividing by 3, y would equal 3. Now what does this really mean? If we have x is 18 and y is 3, this is telling us if we were to graph this on my x-axis, we'd be way over here at 18. That's where this point would be. And then y would be at 1, 2, 3, right there. So that would be our line that we would graph. We're just not actually getting to that graphing point. We'll get to that next. We have one question left here. Again, when we're finding the x-intercept, y is going to be 0. And when we're finding our y-intercept, x is really going to be 0, because that's where we're crossing the y-axis. So first, our x-intercept, y is 0, so we have 0 equal to negative 4x plus 10. And then on the other side, when x is 0, we have y equals negative 4 times 0 plus 10. Now this one on the right, anything times 0 is 0, so it's really already solved for us, y equals 10. But on the left, we need to solve it. So I'm going to subtract 10. So we have negative 10 equal to negative 4x. And divide by negative 4. Negative 4 goes into 10 at least 2 times, should be 2.5. You can plug in your calculator, 10 divided by 4. We know 2 negatives make a positive, and you should get 2.5. Alright, we're over halfway done. Now we are graphing this equation. First we need to find the intercepts. So I'm going to find our x and y intercepts. First I'm going to find my x-intercept. Remember, in our point xy, if we're finding the x-intercept, y is 0. And then later when we're finding our y-intercept, I'm just shortening this, when we're finding our y-intercept, x is 0. So we have first when y is 0. So we have negative 2x plus 0 equal to 6. And over here, when x is 0, negative 2 times 0 plus y equals 6. So the plus 0 really doesn't do anything. So we really have negative 2x equal to 6. So if I divide by negative 2, we get x equals a negative 3. And over here, anything times 0, oopsies, eliminated. I actually just erased it, but it eliminates. And all we have left is y equals 6. So we know that the y here is 6, so this point is really 0, 6. And this point here, x is negative 3, so negative 3, 0. You don't really need to write it as a point like this. However, if you do, it'll help you plot the points. 0, 6 is left and right 0 and up 6. We also know on our y-axis we're at 6. And over here, x is at negative 3, which would be between 2 and 4. And then we are going to draw our line. We got ahead of ourselves. It does say label the points. Our 2 points that we used right up here on our y-axis, that point was 0, 6, and the point down here was negative 4, 0. So for our y-intercept, x, we had a number for y, and for our x-intercept, we had a number for x.